Welcome to the 2021 Wilmington Spring Workshop.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Happy hump day. Yeah, I've been on leave for a little bit, so it's nice to be able to talk to the office folks. And I'll be back on the M here in a few hours. I will see some of y'all in person here soon. So good to see you guys. Hope everybody's doing well. I'll be talking about social media today, some behind the scenes things that I've been doing, and some updates here and there. Table of contents about what's ahead. We're going to talk about the summary of the growth that we saw in 2020, really comparing it to what we saw in 2019 versus 2020, and a review of some best practices on the three social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Focus a lot on Instagram, especially because that's our newest platform. And we're going to talk a little bit about logos later on, and then ideas for posts that we can make during times of quiet weather. So that's a look at what we got ahead. Jumping right into the statistics of our social media growth. Again, this is comparison through the end of 2019 and through the end of 2020. The biggest thing that you should see here in the highlights, we increased. We are on the up and up, which is exactly what you want. Percentage-wise, in terms of Facebook, we grew about 19% in our followers and about 15% in our likes. Twitter, we also saw growth, not as much, at 3%. I do not want that to reflect badly among anybody. The big idea here is that we saw growth, and that is the most important thing. It appears to be that catching growth on Twitter is a lot harder than it is on Facebook. So I don't want anybody to feel bad about that, or I don't want anybody to be disappointed about that. 3% is obviously not enough, not as big of a growth as we saw in Facebook. But I don't think that reflects bad on anybody. And that is just the quirks of what Twitter is as a platform. You will see an asterisk next to Facebook, because Facebook is really weird, to put it one way. You see I have it broken down in terms of followers and likes. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought those were the same thing. I thought we just used those as synonyms. And that was true for the longest time. But then Facebook had the brilliant idea to split up those two metrics at some point along the way. So we'll talk about what that difference is with a like versus a follower. Facebook uses two different metrics to assess the interaction with a public page. A like is when somebody has decided to hit the like button on your page, and it will count towards the total number of likes for your page. So there's 1,000 likes on your page, and you have somebody else that clicks the like button, and then you will then have 1,001. Following is basically like a subcategory within the like button. If somebody is following you, they are choosing to have your posts show up in their feed. When you hit that like button, there's actually two different things that are going on, and you're just not seeing it. When you like a page, you are automatically also following that page. However, you have the option to unfollow a page without unliking that page. So even if somebody still likes your page, if they decide to unfollow you, then the posts from your page will not show up in their Facebook feed as they're scrolling through about it, going about their day. So due to this logic, when we go to the previous slide and look at the total amount of followers versus the total amount of likes, you see that they differ from each other by a few thousand, probably around 3,000 or 4,000 or so. And that's typical for Facebook based on the metric that they have here. So due to the logic that they have, there are probably most likely some dummy likes, quote unquote, that we have in our total like count. People that like us but do not follow us. Maybe they got aggravated with something that we posted and they considered us to be spam, so they decided to unfollow us as a result. This is really confusing, so I highlighted here at the bottom the moral of the story, the big take-home point. Followers are much more important than likes. which again, if we go to the previous slide, we have some great news. We have more followers than likes. That's exactly what you want. That's what you're looking for here. Usually I save the questions to the end of the presentation, but this whole like and follower thing with Facebook, I think, is stupid. There is no other social media outlet that does this. So I'm going to stop right here and see if anybody has any questions on this, because truth be told, I don't even understand it 100%. So if anybody has any questions now, please let me know.
I like followers.
Yeah, the follower idea is a lot better than the like thing. And that's what Twitter and Instagram call it. Twitter calls it followers, Instagram calls it followers, which is also funny because Facebook now owns Instagram, and yet they're not doing this funny business with Instagram. So I'm a little frustrated as to why they do this. But that is a quirk that is all about Facebook.
I actually had a question, Ian. How do you have more followers than likes? Can you follow a page without liking a page? Like, it seems like there's like 3,000 people who follow us but don't like us.
Yeah, so from what I have been able to tell, again, when you hit that like button, there's two things that are happening. You are actually liking and following that page. Those are two things that are happening with just clicking the one like button. But then eventually, if somebody, again, is if they look at our posts as a little too much spam, then they can decide to unfollow us but still keep liking us. But the logic doesn't really make sense how you can have, one more than the other. And I've tried Googling around about this constantly, and even in social media, like marketing pages and blogs, you'll find conversations about this, and people are like, we don't understand what this exactly means or how this is possible. So even in those that are in advertising and marketing, in those social media circles, they don't really understand this. So unfortunately, I don't have even a big answer to that. It's something that I scratch my head about. But it's something that everybody deals with in their grief with Facebook. Hearing nothing from anybody else, so I suppose I can move on at this point. Switch gears and talk about Instagram. These are numbers I just pulled in from just earlier this morning. We launched Instagram on November 2nd, 2020. And these are the numbers that we have from then till now. The biggest number of followers that we had was the month that we launched in November, where we gained 299 followers. And we have leveled off since then. However, I am hoping that when we get into spring and getting into more active weather, we will see those follower numbers start to kick back up. We have a total of now of 359 followers as of about 8 a.m. this morning when I last checked. So that's what we're looking at so far in the total Instagram follower growth. And this is just followers. We don't have any of the like versus follower business. So this is very much what you see is what you get here, which is definitely easier to explain. We're doing a great job there with Instagram. Very happy with where we are as an office, and we'll continue to get better at that over time. Flipping back to Facebook and Twitter with some best practices in terms of the image files. These are image files that we already use anyway all the time. PNG files, JPEG, GIF, MP4. This is stuff that we use every day, especially when it comes to posting the weather story and things like that. So a lot of you pretty much already know this kind of thing anyway. A few notes here and there. On Twitter specifically, you can attach up to 4 still images in a single tweet. And those are just still images, no moving graphics. So that's just PNG files and JPEG and things like that. However, if you're wanting to post a GIF or an MP4, some kind of video or some moving image, you can only attach one of those files per tweet. You cannot attach any other files, no matter the format. Can't post two GIFs, not a GIF and a PNG or anything like that. If it's a GIF or an MP4, it's only one at a time. Facebook also has a weird quirk when it comes to posting GIF and MP4 files, and the next two slides go into more detail about this. So when you go into Facebook and you want to attach your file from either the Create Post button on the main page, or maybe you want to post it from Creator Studio, you'll get this menu. And this menu only shows up when you want to attach GIF files or MP4 files. It does not do this for for PNG or JPEG files. You have two little boxes here that asks you to add a title and then add a description. But they don't necessarily describe to you how that shows up when you go to post it, which is something that's really frustrating. What is the difference here exactly? What does the title and the description look like when I go to actually post this? Once again, why does Facebook do this to me? They do a lot of things that don't make sense to me at all. And this is one of those weird little quirks. The biggest thing here is that when it comes to focusing on the description versus the title, you really want to focus on the description more. The description is the main caption that people will see the most when they scroll through their feed. Most of them won't even see the title as the post shows up in their feed. So on the left side, this is a screenshot of something that we posted. This is a GIF that somebody made as a weather story that's got a few different slides where it flips back and forth. That red arrow shows the description that somebody typed in. So if you go to the previous slide, that is the second box there in the add a description box. And that's what shows up in the feed. That is the grand majority of people that are going to see that part right there. So that's the part that you want to focus on. If you were on a laptop or a mobile device or anything like that, and if you actually clicked on the GIF or clicked on the MP4 file, then it would blow up on you, and then you would actually be able to see the title that somebody labeled it with the description under it. But again, most people would not do this. Most people would just see the GIF or the MP4 within their feed, and they're not going to actually click on it. They'll click the like or the comment button or the share button, but they're not going to click. Most of them are not going to click on the video itself. So the big idea here is that you want to focus on the description box more than the title box. Of course, give the title something, so that way people don't catch you with your pants down. But you want to make sure that you get a description going, because that is the part that most people will see. And that's the part that most people will care about. Once again, this is just a little quirk that Facebook has that they don't necessarily explain to you up front how it all works. So you have to do some dinking and dunking to kind of figure it out on your own. When it comes to the ratios, how the images look when you go to post to Facebook and Twitter, here are the pixel resolutions. Facebook likes 1200 by 628, and Twitter likes 1200 by 675 pixels. These ratios are, I call them pretty much identical to each other. So I say you can just post the exact same image size for both platforms, which that's what pretty much we already do anyway. To me, it's not really worth it to mess with your resolution ratios to get that difference in the width of, 30, 40 pixels in the difference between Facebook and Twitter. So one image will work fine for both platforms, which again, we've been doing this anyway. And the good news is that PowerPoint already defaults to this general size. You want to check on that to make sure. You can go to the top of PowerPoint to all the tabs that are up above. You can click on the Design tab, and then you make your way over to the right side of the page, the top right, and you select the Slide Size button at the top right, and just confirm that the slide size is selected on widescreen, which is 16 by 9, which equates to the pixel ratio size. I think it's more based towards Facebook than Twitter. But again, in terms of pixels, they're so similar to each other. I personally just treat them as the same thing. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So this aspect ratio generally translates to the pixel ratios listed above. That part really isn't any different than what we've been doing anyway. As it comes to Instagram, the image files that they like are PNG and JPEG. I've posted some JPEG files in the past to the operations chat for the weather story. There are a few internet sources out there that say that JPEG is actually the best format to use, that it actually looks better than PNG. So I experimented with that for a while over a streak of HW shifts that I had over a span of a couple weeks. I didn't really see a difference in quality. PNG looks just as good as JPEG to me. So, you know, those sources that I read out there, I don't know. You can call it for what it is. But I think whichever format you like will work. Most of us seem to use PNG, myself included. So again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I like the idea of just sticking to a file that's the same for everybody. Makes things a little easier. The unfortunate thing with Instagram, as many of you have found out, Instagram does not do GIF files. Perhaps they will one day, but that day has not come. So instead, we have to do MP4. That's why we've been doing a lot of MP4 lately when it comes to the weather story. So some of this still, you know, is not necessarily new to everybody, but this is just kind of getting used to the quirks of Instagram. If you want to make some kind of moving image, it needs to be in the MP4 format and not GIF. Now, Instagram loves square images, and that is the preferred ratio that we want, a 1-to-1 ratio, which is a square image. 16:9 ratios, which is what we've been doing for Facebook and Twitter, those also work for Instagram. So, you know, we've all have been doing that. So I don't want to accuse anybody or make it seem like that anybody's guilty or doing anything wrong, because it has worked. But Instagram, being a very mobile-centric platform that it is, and the way their infrastructure is set up, they love 1-to-1 square ratios. So if you want to be a little fancy, there's a few things in PowerPoint that you can do to create an image that is a 1-to-1 ratio. And overall, it looks better for the platform. So here's a screenshot that I took from my phone of the, you know, just our homepage on our Instagram and the multiple images that we've posted in the past. And I have pointed out one from the 16:9 ratio, the one that's typically used for Facebook and Twitter, and one that I created back in January. I think that 1-to-1 ratio was a weather story I created for MLK. And you see how, well, it's kind of hard to tell in the screenshot. But you see how things look a little more centered in the 1-to-1 ratio, as opposed to things being squeezed off in the 16:9. It looks better when you look at this up close. So when you actually click on the 16:9 post, you will see the post in full, which is good. That's what the user needs. That's what they're looking for. But 1-to-1 ratios, because of how Instagram is set up, simply look better. Looks a little more zoomed in. It looks a little more legible, which is ultimately what you want. However, you might tell when in the 1-to-1 ratio that the KLTX radar looks a little tall, and that is because the image gets skewed, because that is originally a 16:9 photo that I took with my phone that was then later converted to a 1-to-1 ratio. So you're getting that weird stretch effect. So the better idea would be to have a number of pictures saved on our Google Drive that we could use as templates that are already taken in the 1-to-1 ratio format. That's actually a little separate venture that I'm working on myself. I bought a new phone recently that has all the fancy cameras on it, and I can take pictures with 1-to-1 ratios on it. So that's something that I'm going to try to work on. If the weather gets better over time in the spring and the summer, I'm going to break out my camera and go around town and take some nice pictures with both the 1-to-1 ratio and the 16:9 ratio. So that way we have some great images to work with for any kind of social media posts. So that'll be a project for me. And of course, if anybody wants to join in on the project, feel free. This is a very low-key and casual thing that I've been doing. So I have no hard deadlines and that kind of thing as the social media focal point. So to get a 1-to-1 ratio, you can do this in PowerPoint. It's the same thing we did before earlier. You go to your design tab at the top, you click on that, and then you go to the top right, you click on slide size. And instead of clicking on standard or widescreen, you can click on custom screen size, and a little window will pop up asking you to put in your width and height, both in inches. And the number that I found was 6.4 inches. There was another website, well, it was a few websites that I went on that focused specifically in advertising and marketing and how to best format things for social media. And 6.4 inches, for reasons I don't necessarily understand, is just the magic number. So put in 6.4 for both the width and height, and you select OK, and then you are good to go. So all of those social media marketers and influencers out there agree that 6.4 by 6.4 inches is best. For reasons I don't necessarily know, but if you want to make a really pretty image that is just picture perfect for Instagram, that's how you do it. Again, this is not a requirement, but this is just something that you might want to do if you want to make something a little prettier. You can do it for the weather story. It'll take a little bit of extra working and finagling, but you can get it done. When it comes to linking in captions and using certain hyperlinks, Instagram has a little quirk here, and I know some of you have already noticed this. We all know, especially using Facebook and Twitter, that if we copy and paste a link, such as just our regular homepage, into any caption or comment, if we do this on Facebook and Twitter, that user can click on that link and go immediately to that web page. And they can do this regardless if they're on a computer, a tablet, a smartphone, whatever. Again, we've been doing this for a long time. That's no different to any of us. For now, maybe this will change in the future, but for now, this does not apply for Instagram. The users cannot interact with links that are copied and pasted in an Instagram caption. In fact, the copy and paste function on iOS devices is completely disabled when scrolling through Instagram. I tested that on my iPhone. I do not know if the same can be said for Android folks. So if any Android folks want to go on there and play with their phone real quick, maybe you can let me know about that.
It is the same.
But if anybody, is it? Okay, well, there you go. If they wanted to visit the link on their phone, they would have to type in that URL manually, which of course they could do, but that's a giant pain in the neck. So the solution to that, there's a popular hashtag on Instagram that people like to call link in bio. So in spite of this weird quirk, a popular hashtag tells you where to go when you want somebody to click on your link. This allows you to copy and paste a link that the users can actually interact with. So it's a little weird, but it can help solve this problem. So say you made a weather story this morning about river flooding, and you want to link the AHAPS page. Simply copy the AHAPS link as you usually would, but instead of pasting it into the Instagram caption, you can paste it into the URL link that is found where our bio is on our homepage. Full screenshot of our homepage on Instagram, that little red arrow clicking to some random link that goes, I don't know where. But you can edit that link to whatever you want, to AHAPS or weather.gov ILM or whatever you want. So some of you already know how to do this, but here's a quick little instruction manual. Go to the top right and click on the NWS icon, which is our profile picture. And that pops up a little menu, and you want to click on the settings. And the screenshot of the bottom right is where you should be going to when you click on settings. And you should already be within the Edit Profile submenu. If you're not, go ahead and click on that. And you have your link copied from AHAPS or whatever. And you paste your link into the website section, another red arrow there, and you click Submit at the bottom of the screen. And then you're good to go. And then when you go to make your Instagram post with your weather story about river flooding, you just say, hey, go to our bio and click on the link in our bio and learn more about river flooding. You can use hashtag link in bio. Again, that's a popular hashtag in the Instagram world. So if you're going to use a link in bio, I recommend using that hashtag simply because it increases visibility. And of course, visibility, that's good. We want more followers. We want more likes. We're playing a little bit of the advertising and marketing game, even though nobody wants to admit it. But that's what we're doing. And anything that we can do on our own can certainly help us out. Another potential solution for this, hopefully sometime in the future, is the swipe up feature that Instagram has. You have the option to copy and paste an interactive link in Instagram stories, which lasts for 24 hours. We've done a few of these stories in the past. I've played with Instagram stories for our account a few times here and there. Users can view our story, and then they can swipe up to go to our attached link. The problem with this is that we do not have access to this function yet. There are one of two things that you need. You need to have at least 10,000 followers. We're currently sitting at what is now 359. I meant to change that, which that's going to be a real big uphill battle for us. But the easier thing, if not have 10,000 followers, we could have a verified account, which is that magical coveted blue check mark that's located next to your username, which we currently do not have on Instagram. None of the WFOs on Instagram have verified accounts. And while I do not know this for sure, I am assuming that is because we are currently in an experimental trial of Instagram. Ideally, if we become operational in Instagram one day, I would assume we would be verified soon after, just like our Facebook and Twitter are now. We have that blue check mark on our Facebook and Twitter pages. So the question is that swipe up function coming soon for us? I have no idea, but that would be really, really helpful for us to be verified so that way we can have access to that swipe up function. I know this is a little vague. It'd be nice if I had some visual examples here, but I've decided to leave that out for now because that's a little bit of a down the road thing. But this is just something that I wanted to let y'all know about that is another potential for us to get into at some point along the way. That would be very, very helpful for us. Logos. Jumping off a little bit of the social media platforms in general and just kind of talking about the bigger scope of things. Behind the scenes, I have been updating some of the weather story templates with the latest social media logos. So any template that has had social media logos located at the bottom, I took out some old ones and updated them with new ones. And I have the screenshots at the bottom to indicate that. This actually keeps us out of trouble with these old social media platforms. If I may, is anybody able to see my Safari web browser right now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So, you know what? This will actually work better with Twitter. So something that personally drives me crazy, and I see a lot of WFOs that do this. We have this old ancient Twitter logo right here of the lowercase t. That's what Twitter's logo looked like when I was in high school. Okay, that's like Twitter circa 2010. Believe it or not, these social media platforms actually have rules in place where if you are going to use their logo, you have to use the latest of their logo. So I see multiple WFOs out there that are breaking these rules. And I'm kind of surprised that none of the social media platforms out there have been popping us and getting us in trouble for it, because they have a history of getting other people in trouble for doing these kinds of things. So I helped us out and kind of saved us. And anytime I saw any old logo that looked weird, I got the newest logo, which is the one that we're all used to seeing anyway, that blue bird. The biggest thing here is you can actually go to these social media websites in and of themselves and download the high resolution versions of their logos. This is the much better way to do it instead of just Googling the images like what I did here. I just did this to cheat, just to kind of show you guys. But you can actually go to like Facebook marketing or Twitter marketing, and you can go to their marketing websites and you can download all of their stuff for free. And that's what they want you to do. They encourage you to do that. Instagram does the same thing. So I also downloaded the Instagram logo, of course, now that we have one, and to remind people that we have one. And I have collected high resolution quality images of every logo you would ever need to make a post. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, NWS, NOAA, DOC, Skywarn. I've got all sorts of stuff in there. I threw them all together in a Google folder that I hyperlinked in this presentation. Again, this is much better than just Googling the logos, because if you just do that, you are very likely to get a poor quality version that just doesn't look good. So here's, if you were to click on the Google folder link, it would take you to the logo section here, which I put within the folder that we created last year called ILM Stock Photos. You click on here where it says logos, and I got them all split up here. So you go in here and you pick out what you need. Like for Facebook, I got the high quality version of the Facebook logo. This is what they use today. And I also included a PDF. This comes straight from the source of how to best appropriately use the Facebook logo. I also have the same thing for Twitter here. I followed all of the brand guidelines for every social media platform. So when I freshened up some of these weather story templates, it follows all the rules. We're no longer breaking any rules here, so we're good to go there. And again, this just creates a better, cleaner look for us. And if you want to create something from scratch, you have all of these logos located here. I also threw them into our Google site. If you go to Programs and click on Social Media, it'll bring you to this page here. And you scroll down a little bit, and you see logos here, updated February 2021. And you have different folders that take you out to the same Google folders that I have already set up for every one of us. So there's another resource for you to look at whenever you need it. So moving on to the last part of this presentation, ideas for quiet weather posts. Something I have pitched is a Meet the Staff series. There's a number of WFOs out there that have done this in recent years. Melbourne, Florida did this recently. I have an example of them here. This comes from Twitter. This is something that they posted May 29th of last year. So this is somebody that they did of one of their leads. Nice little picture of him. Yeah, Mr. Tony came in and got a nice picture of him and a little description about his education background and what his responsibilities are and things like that. Some of this is stuff that we already do in the Wilmington Ways. We did one for Nancy in the issue, the latest issue that we've done. And the issue before that, we did something for me. So something that we already do for the Wilmington Way, we can translate that for social media. If people are okay with this, some of these posts could also double as bios that can be included with a staff directory on our public webpage. This is something that Raleigh does. So if you go to that hyperlink that I have in the presentation, it goes to the link of Raleigh staff, and you have their names and some of their bios. So if you click on Jimmy, and you get a little thing about him. You get his education background, his hometown, what his responsibilities are, very similar to what we already do in the Wilmington Ways. So depending on what some rules are, that might be over my head or what people are okay with. I certainly would love to do a Meet the Staff series that we can expand to do the Wilmington Ways and or the webpage and or social media. That would be a really good, quick, pre-made quiet weather posts. when it's a sunny day and nothing else is going on. We could also do certain science kind of posts. We could create a list of various different science topics that could be explored. Maybe the sea breeze. Maybe we want to talk about what the sea breeze is and how it works. We got the spring equinox coming up in a couple of weeks. That would be a cool thing to talk about. Of course, we can always remember the seasonal safety campaigns. We just entered meteorological spring, and now we have the spring safety campaign. You can go to the social media plans here, and you can click on any category you want, and it already has an image and some text for you to throw out there on your social media platforms. Easy stuff. I love doing that. That's typically, if I'm looking for a quiet weather post, that's typically one of the first places I go. There's a number of different ideas that we could throw in here with quiet weather posts. And that's why I open the question for any other ideas from folks that have posts. This is the end of my presentation anyway, so I take questions in general that can be quiet weather related posts or question related to anything else. Appreciate you guys listening in, hoping everybody is well, and I'll be glad to take some questions.
Hey, Ian. Great presentation. I have a few comments and questions. The square images for Instagram, I don't mean to poo-poo that at all, but we used to have everything square, and then we did everything 16 by 9. So we converted everything over. So we have a lot of old stuff that is square, but we converted everything over to widescreen because of Facebook and Twitter and such. And I'm thinking overall, I mean, as far as I could see in the feed, you could zoom in a little bit. And I think overall the widescreen worked fine. I know when you look at our whole page, you see things cut off, but most of the people are seeing us in the feed. It's just my comment about that. I'm not sure if I don't know. It's a lot of work, also extra work for people to do that. Once you switch a slide from 16 to 9 to square, it moves everything around and screws everything up. But I don't know. It's up to you. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if it's worth that. But yeah. The other thing I was talking about was the link in the bio. The link in the bio, like a lot of pages obviously have that link in bio because we can't do links. But a lot of the big pages have actually, the link in the bio actually brings them to a web page that's, / Instagram. And then they have all the pictures lined up. So it looks like their Instagram feed or whatever with a photo. And then you can get to the story. We could essentially have, which could be kind of cool, you click on a link in the bio and then we could have a page that says for flooding, for, severe weather, for this, we could have all these links that could bring people to the important things on our page. Just an idea, rather than people switching the bio just to one link each time. I'm not sure if you're also allowed multiple links in your bio. I wasn't sure about that, but we could kind of categorize it in such a way. That was my 2 cents worth. Great presentation, though.
Yeah, thank you. If you're able to categorize that in such a way, I think that would be excellent because that takes out of that's a good little cheat, and that takes out some of the grief and the guesswork on our end as we switch from one link to the other. It sounds like you know more about that than I would. I'd like to be able to talk about that more, but that would be that would be a huge help on our part to kind of streamline everything more. Yeah, the 16 by 9 stuff and the 1 by 1 stuff. I mean, again, I'm not, I'm not pushing that. I don't like that Instagram does that. I wish it was the same as everybody else. I figured it would just be, good to talk about. And if somebody wants to sit there and mess with it and go the extra mile, that's great. But 16 by 9 works just fine. I did talk to Mike K recently, and he told me that he had an issue with something getting cut off in 16 by 9 recently. I hope that does not become a trend, that like Instagram is trying to change something that messes everybody else up. So I hope that doesn't become a regular problem.
I've seen that a couple of times. I've seen that a couple of times, and I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's when you're posting through Instagram. I think if you do it through Creator Studio, But I think when you post through Instagram itself, there's an option of somehow, I forgot what it's called. It says reposition. I don't know what it's called. I can't think of the name right now. But when you do that, it cuts it. So you should not do that. But if you do it with Creator Studio, you'll be safe.
Okay. Okay. Well, there you go. That's something I didn't even realize there. Okay. That's very, very good to know. Huh.
All right, guys,
Hey, Ian.
we're getting pretty far behind. Does anybody have anything that, shouldn't just be relegated to an email conversation with Ian, since he's our subject matter expert? Because we still got the hot wash at the end, which was tentatively up to an hour. I think Mark.
Two real quick comments on this.
Sure.
First of all, great presentation, Ian. I wanted to mention that we can talk about this offline, Ian, but I would like us to challenge ourselves with Instagram and maybe think about it as something completely different. Like, do we need to post every weather story on there? Because I've got a hunch that the Instagram machine learning algorithm might be docking us because of all the text on the images. But we can talk about that offline for sure. Mark, you have a good point there about running behind. But Ian, we can talk about that later.